it do, folks? Welcome back, YouTube fam, to another Monday, another episode of MMA Mondays. We're on number 23, and I forgot to mention last week, number 22. Why did I forget to mention number 22? 22, for those of you guys who don't know, is probably my favorite number, my lucky number. 11, 22, they're interchangeable, and actually, if you double 11, you get 22. Why 11 or 22? Well, fun fact, my birthday is November 22nd. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of why I'm with the 22. I wanted to shout that out last episode, but I forgot to. So we're on number 23, the Jordan episode. But I'm gonna give it a second, wait for everything to populate, get people in here. Might as well text out the link to a few people. Start us off with "Welcome to the Jungle." If you guys don't get that reference, this past weekend actually, Glover Teixeira, who also retired, walked out to "Welcome to the Jungle," which I thought was really sweet. In Brazil, the crowd went nuts, and obviously you're in the jungle, Brazil, so it was a very fitting walkout. It was pretty sweet, and I don't know, that was a pretty underrated walkout in my opinion. That got me pretty hyped up. Let me go ahead and send out this link though to some people. Get this this stream populated. How we doing? How we doing? Can we get some flamingos in the chat? I couldn't get a single one last week. Could not get a single one. So let me see. Send this out to a few more folks. Bam. 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 There we go. But yeah, besides the fights, it's been a pretty exciting weekend in terms of the fights. A lot going on. Some fight announcements as well. As you guys could tell by the title, we had the Merab I never know how to say that properly. And Piotr Jan fight. It was awesome to see Piotr actually got a fight booked, because I know he was talking about after the O'Malley fight that he was basically like kind of wanting out of the UFC, which I obviously don't think any people, any UFC fans, MMA fans really wanted to see that happen, unless like maybe you're a executive at like One Championship or Bellator or PFL, something like that. Then obviously like, oh yeah, let's go. But I don't want to see Piotr Jan leave. I don't think a lot of people do, just because obviously he's one of the best fighters, one of the best bantamweights in the world. He's easily a top 3 bantamweight in the world. Could even be top 2. I don't know. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world. You could even like literally, he can be the best fighter in the world. There's no arguing that he can't be. Former champion, and he's coming off a 3-fight losing skid, but he's lost to Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley, literally 2 of the top guys, the champion, and literally the number 1 ranked guy in the bantamweight division. So that's kind of tough. And obviously too, you can't really blame the UFC for maybe being on the wrong side of decisions or how things played out, because in the first Sterling loss, it was entirely his fault. Entirely his fault. The second fight, it was a close fight. Yes, it could have gone either way, but you still had 25 minutes locked in a cage with somebody to finish the fight. Like, you can't say that's the UFC's fault. That ultimately kind of is your fault. You had 25 minutes with it all in your hands to make something happen. And then the Sean fight, again, another close fight. But also, you had a fight, you were in there for 15 minutes locked in a cage to make something happen for yourself, and you didn't make anything happen that 15 minutes, or you didn't do enough convincingly, I guess, in the judge's eyes. It does kind of suck. I don't think it was a robbery in that. I don't think either of those were a robbery, honestly. I think the right decision was made, but for a close decision, you can't really be mad at anybody but yourself, because you ultimately could think, well, I could have done more, I could have done this, I could have done that, because it was in your hands for that period of time. But he's going to be locked in the cage again with another really tough guy, this time with Merab who's probably like one of the best. I would argue he was probably a better grappler than Aljamain Sterling. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, because Aljamain, obviously having the being a training partner of Merab, and also coming off of 2 fights with Piotr Jan, has definitely got some inside knowledge that maybe might help Merab. And if Merab's a better grappler than Aljo, might be a tough night for Jan. Might put him on a 4-fight skid, which really would just be a tough tear. But then, again, I don't know, who do you get mad at? You took that fight. It's just, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I think Merab will beat him. But I don't know, part of me also thinks that Merab could be a little bit chinny, because he did. If you guys remember in the Marlon Moraes fight, Moraes was literally like probably 1 or 2 punches away from knocking Merab out, like knocking him out. Like he had him in serious, serious, serious danger, and then Merab weathered the storm. And I mean, Marlon's just also notorious for gassing out. Like after that first round, like he just dies. He completely deflates. Um, Piotr's not going to have that problem, and he might be. He definitely is probably a better striker, probably just as powerful. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Maybe Jan knocks out Merab. It's either Jan knocks out Merab or Merab decisions him. I don't think Jan decisions Merab, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But that was a very interesting fight announcement. I don't even remember if that was on what, Friday or Saturday. I feel like that was sometime this past weekend. But yeah. Also, I don't know, what did I do Friday? Friday went out with some friends. That was really it. I also read a lot of this book too. I don't know if you guys have. I'm sure a lot of people have heard 48 Laws of Power. Pretty interesting book. I'm only on like I haven't gotten very far into it. I'm only on page 60, but I highly, highly recommend this just because I don't know. There's a lot of knowledge, and just a lot of good things. Good ways of like putting things in a frame, or like I don't know, just ways of analyzing situations, and just good things to know, good ways of like good paradigms in your brain to run through in certain situations, to think through situations. Just a lot of knowledge, a lot of power in this book. 48 Laws of Power. Highly, highly recommend it. I'll figure out or which copy I bought, and I'll link it in the description of this. But I've been reading that, trying to get into reading books. It's kind of like a 2023 thing of mine. Speaking of 2023 as well, the Patreon. If you guys are not on the Patreon, I preach this every single week. I don't even know why I preach it because it's kind of like stupid. Like the work literally speaks for itself. I just gave away. It was free food, free just bones, tossing them away. I was like, here, take this Daniel Marcos plus 130 underdog bet. Just take my scraps. Here you go. It's my offering to you peasants. Not really. That was a bit aggressive, but basically, I'm telling you guys, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff, and then I throw it out at people, and then nobody takes a free offering like that, literally plus underdog odds. It hits, dude gets the second round finish, um, and then Patreon obviously went 3-1 on the weekend. I actually posted that up on my story. If you guys are not following me on Instagram, go ahead and check me out. Where am I at? Is it down there? Something like that. One of these bottom corners. Patreon's also linked on there as well. We're 5-2 on the year. 7 total bets that I've given away. Won 5 of them and lost 2. And I believe actually the only 2 that I've lost have actually been favorites. So that's kind of interesting, kind of funny. I'm pretty good with the UFC underdogs. I'll just go ahead and recap who I had. I don't even need to go look at it. The only loss was Terrence McKinney. That was kind of a devastating loss, but because it was such a sweet knockout, I'll let it slide. Then obviously we had the Daniel Marcos. That was the free one that I threw on my Instagram, but that was also a Patreon bet. And then I had Brandon Moreno and Jamahal Hill in both title fights, both new champions. So Patreon did very well this week, and if you guys are not signed up again, I don't know. I'm not even going to keep preaching on about it because you guys are just literally missing out on money if you guys aren't signed up on there. Real quick, though, I'll just go ahead and pull up. Let me see. I'll pull up the card from UFC 283 because it was a pretty insane card. I mean, the first fight in Brazil or pay-per-view event. I don't know. I think it was just the first live crowd in Brazil since 2019. Speaking of things since 2019 is too, my brain's all over the place, but I just remembered this Sage Northcutt is having his first fight in almost 4 years, or pretty much 4 years, and one championship. I think it's going to be the card that's in the United States, the first one in the U.S. Fight Night 10 or something like that, I believe. But Brazil had its first live audience UFC event since 2019, and I will tell you what, that was definitely one of the more exciting cards I've seen. I feel like I say that every time. It's just recency bias, but it was a very exciting card. A lot of finishes. A great way to kick off the year in terms of UFC pay-per-views. Let me go ahead and switch on over. We're gonna have to do something about that. I'm gonna have to. How are we gonna? We're gonna maneuver this. Set this like up here, like that. Nah. I might go up here, even though this cord's in the way. It's kind of annoying. We'll just fix that. We're working on the fly right here. Bam. Wonder if I can. What does that do? What does that do? Oh yeah. Look at that. Alrighty. Let me go back over here real quick. Fix this. Bam, bam. All right, let's go all the way down to the prelims. First fight of the night, Daniel Marcos knockout. that was a pretty easy bet. And then Josane Nunes, I don't know what that was. I'm sorry, that was a bit uncomfortable to do myself. I'm sure watching that was probably doubly as uncomfortable. Josiane Nunes, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and I don't know how to pronounce either of these. But Farron was really, really big in comparison to Nunes. A lot of people were betting on Farron. She was a pretty decent underdog. Um, but anybody that knows anything about fighting, size doesn't really matter. It's just more so experience and skill, and obviously Nunes showed that she was the more skilled and more experienced fighter. Actually, I know she is the more experienced fighter, but beating basically somebody that looked like she was like 3 weight classes above Nunes. Worley Alves, Nicholas Dalby. I'm kind of upset that I didn't throw this in as a Patreon bet because I'm always big on Nicholas Dalby. He's a fun fighter to watch, and he always puts on a show. I was kind of split decision. I mean, it was a very exciting fight, but I thought for sure I thought he could have potentially finished Alves going into the fight. Um, but Nicholas Dalby plus 105 underdog there. Cashin coming through with the dub. Terrence McKinney and Ismail Bonfim. This was the one Patreon bet that lost, but as you can see here, performance of the night, first round knockout. And actually, you know what? Let me show you guys something because I still won money on this fight, and this was as cheeky as it gets, as Michael Bisping would like to say in terms of bets. I just sprinkled on just for fun. Just for fun, just a little something something. I don't know if my camera can pick that up, but I bet on this fight to be won in basically the 2 minute to 2:59 minute mark of the second round. Or the second round knockout, my bad. Second round plus 1,100 odds. Cash 50 cents for like $6. I would just threw 50 cents on it because like I don't know, I could see the fight ending here really soon. It was like a flash bet, one of those live bets or whatever as the fight's happening. That did win. So that was nice. It kind of lessened the blow of actually that made me actually kind of won me money off of the initial loss. Well, it won me $1. So that was nice. But keeping it moving, Cody Stamann and Luan Lacerda. Stamann looked really, really good. His boxing looked sharp in this fight. Just proved his experience and tenure in the UFC. Shamil Abdurakhimov and Yalton Almeida. Yalton Almeida is a problem. We need to talk about how good Yalton Almeida is. He's literally kind of like has like a Hamzat approach of pretty much where he just like kind of goes out there and runs through people. Like literally, he could probably fight at light heavyweight. I don't. He kind of reminds me of like Johnny Walker, where Johnny Walker could do the same thing that Almeida does. He's not nearly as skilled as Almeida, in my opinion. But like both these guys are just big, strong, athletic freaks, and could really just go anywhere between. Like they could stay. They could go down to light heavyweight, cut the weight, and be massive, and probably just it would suck a little bit to get down. Or they could be at heavyweight and just be massive as well, but also be like just like they're not going to be cutting weight. They'll still be ripped. They'll still be shredded. They'll still be fast and probably a lot more athletic and quicker than a lot of these heavyweights. Like Yelton Almeida is a very, very special athlete, and I'm very excited to see who he fights. I think he actually could have a chance of cracking into like the top five, definitely top 10, top five of the heavyweight division. I'm trying to do something on the back end right now, but my computer is just absolutely freezing up. There we go. I'm trying to slide this over. Okay, now let me switch back. There we go. But no, yeah, I'm very high on Yalton Almeida. I would like to see more of him in the future, and I really want to see him just against some high level opponents. Gabriel Bonfim and Manur Lazez, another solid finish for the Bonfim brothers. I'm really excited to see both these guys as well progress in the UFC, see who they fight. Both got some pretty quick finishes against some tough UFC tested guys. I want to say Lazez is like some of the best UFC has to offer, but he's fought in the UFC. He's won in the UFC. Same thing with Terrence McKinney. He's fought tough dudes as well. Drew Dober almost finished a guy like Drew Dober. Ended up losing that fight. Now he's getting his loss with Ismail Bonfim. But both these Bonfim brothers, very, very skilled, look to be very high level, and I'm excited to see what the future has in store for them. Thiago Moises and I forget, they kept calling this guy Melk, so I'm just going to call him Melk Costa. Costa actually surprised me for being a very sizable underdog that he was. He had a very, very good striking base. So I was very impressed with that. He seemed like he was a pretty strong athletic guy as well, but it seemed like over time, eventually Moises' skill eventually wore through and started to grind out Costa, and eventually got the submission win in the second round. Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Ferreira. This was tough to watch. Rodriguez, I had a little personal parlay that I threw together on the side. Nothing official, just something I threw together. And Gregory Rodriguez was the last leg, and I thought this was just like a surefire safe bet. Like, oh yeah, this is easy money. Gregory Rodriguez gets knocked out in the first round by a plus 255 underdog. So that was a tough pill to swallow, but still exciting fight. I like to see an underdog win like that. Ihor Pretoria and Shogun Rua. Pretoria, I'm definitely not saying that right, but got the first round knockout against a legend like Shogun. Tough to watch somebody like Shogun go out like that, especially in Brazil. But I mean, again, that's kind of Shogun probably should have retired years ago. I mean, literally when he came to the UFC and won the UFC championship, his better days were probably past him. And the fact that he's still fighting now, like 10 years later after he was past his time, is kind of nuts. Tough to see, but it could have been worse. Glad to see that he's progressing forward in his life, and I'm excited to see what the next chapter for him is. Paul Craig and Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker gets the first round knockout. Thing with Paul Craig is he just like his submissions are really good. He's exciting when the fight gets to the ground, but like literally all he does is like just go for like sloppy takedowns, sloppy singles, or like literally will try to pull guard. And then that's kind of stupid. Like I remember one fight he had where he literally would just pull guard over and over and over and over again, or like literally sit to his butt or Imanari. I'm like that stuff's kind of stupid. It was like reminded me of that Claudio Puelles and Dan Hooker fight. Like when you just literally just keep resorting to the same thing over and over again, it's not as a fan, it's not something that you want to watch. It makes me less I don't know, less interested or less excited about the fight. Um, I don't know. I feel like you need to mix it up. He didn't do that much this fight, but it still seems like he kind of likes to. He just relies too much on the grappling. I feel like if you really want to progress through the ranks, you need to be a little bit more well rounded than that. Lauren Murphy and Jessica Andrade. Lauren Murphy is tough as nails, but Jessica Andrade cruised through a very dominant decision win. Gilbert Burns getting the dominant first round finish against Neil Magny kind of remind me. I feel like he kind of wanted to put on a Hamzat like performance after coming off a tough loss against Hamzat Chimaev, giving him his toughest fight ever. Goes out there and pretty much just runs through Neil Magny, gets him down and gets the sub. Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno with the doctor stoppage. A lot of people were upset. I was really confused because there was a lot of people that I saw on Twitter, a lot of people that I considered to be smart people. Ariel Helwani was one of the people that was basically on Twitter like complaining about how like that was a horrible miss by Herb Dean, and that like it was like that changed the outcome of the fight. And like I don't know, there's a lot of people that were really upset about basically Brandon Moreno eye poking Davison Figueiredo. If you go back and watch that, Brandon Moreno punches him in one eye, and then the eye poke or like the scrape or whatever went across on the other eye. The eye that he grabbed was the eye that got punched in, not the eye he got poked in. So I don't see why that's a big miss, because if the one he punched him in the eye and he's complaining about the one that he got punched in, that's like literally like that's perfectly legal. There's no reason for people to be complaining and be upset about that on Twitter and that sort of stuff. So that was a bit weird to me. And especially for people, like I said, that I consider to be like intelligent people or like, knowledgeable people of the sport. That was a bit disappointing, but keeping it moving on to the main event. I don't know why I said disappointing too. That was so weird. It's just whatever. It's like, come on. Glover Teixeira and Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill, I was big on Jamahal Hill. I thought he would. I thought if anything he was going to get a quick knockout, though. I didn't think he would be able to like dominantly beat Glover Teixeira in a 5-round decision, but put on, I mean, 50-44 to legend like Glover Teixeira. And it was interesting too because they were saying in the commentary that they think that Teixeira has like got like at least like another 4 years potentially in his career, and I was like, whoa, like the dude's like what 40 something right now. That's a bit of a stretch, but I mean, it's not, I mean it is possible. There is people like Yoel Romero, even like some Randy Coutures who fought like way past their prime and were still effective, winning championships, that sort of stuff. But I think the sport's evolving, and especially now we're getting people that are like really really good athletes. Jamahal Hill is clearly a really really good athlete. You're starting to get people like that, and unfortunately, like your toughness, your grit, your old guy experience is just going to get overcome by these younger, stronger, just more athletic guys. And Jamahal Hill obviously showed a lot of improvements in his game. His takedown defense was on point. That really, really surprised me. I was impressed with his ability to stuff takedowns, even when the fight got to the ground. Just being patient, being smart, finding his space to get up, and his opportunities to get up and getting up just about every time. So props to him. And I mean, there was a few things like on the feet and between exchanges and stuff like that. He'd kind of have his hands at his hip and like kind of take a deep breath. Um, Teixeira never really capitalized on it, but there's like just like moments in between exchanges where he kind of just looks sloppy. I feel like there is some things that he needs to tighten up, but Jamahal Hill really is going to be a problem. If he can tighten up and if he keeps progressing at the rate he's progressing, like, dude, in between fights, he gets better every single fight. You can't deny. If you would have told me 3 fights ago that Jamahal Hill would be UFC champion, I honestly wouldn't have believed you. But then after maybe his last fight against Thiago Santos, I was like, okay, this guy, this like he's got what it takes. He's got the heart. He's got the grit. He's got the toughness. Um, he even showed in that fight on the ground that he can hang with people on the ground. But obviously, I wouldn't consider Thiago Santos to be somebody like Glover Teixeira on the ground. But he hung with Glover Teixeira, a legend of the sport, and a very very well respected, very and a very decorated grappler. He really impressed me, and I'm excited to see what the future has in store for Jamahal Hill. I think the UFC too was really hoping that Paul Craig was going to win because he's the only guy to actually beat Jamahal Hill, and that's honestly Paul Craig. I hate to say it, but probably his best chance of really jumping the ranks and soaring through to a title shot. I don't know. Let me know what you guys. How'd you guys? What'd you guys think of the fights? I thought it was a really good card, a really great way to kick off the year. I don't think there's not any fights next weekend, unfortunately. So we get a week off, but then we start off in February. Let me see what event we have. It's gonna be what, upcoming? Yeah, that's probably right. My computer's gonna take a hot sec. Oh yeah, this is the Lewis and Spivak. I forget what happened. I think Lewis he had to take a dump or something, and the fight got pulled. But the main card on this starts at like 1 a.m. I don't know if I'm honestly gonna watch this, to be honest. I may like throw on the prelims if I'm up that late on Saturday night, but I don't know. I may not watch it. If it was a different main event, maybe they would get me to stay up, but I don't know. There's a lot of people out there too, because I know a lot of my fans live, or a lot of people that watch my videos are all across the world. People in whatever, Australia, New Zealand, even Europe, places like India. They're probably like, yeah, suck it up, dude, because you get to watch them on prime time, your time, all the time. So, I do get that. I gotta suck it up for one event, but honestly, I probably won't watch it because uh, it's not maybe Derek Lewis. They might pull me in with Derek Lewis, but I don't know. I don't get super excited about him and Spivak. Spivak will probably beat him, honestly. But I'll go ahead and I'll go over that next week on next week's MMA Monday. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and flip us back over now to the full screen so you guys can see my beautiful face. But yeah, that's probably gonna recap. I feel like we covered all the topics. I went over the Jan and Merab fight. Recap the fights from this past weekend. Patreon went over the Patreon bets as well. There really hasn't been much in the MMA world to talk about that I haven't covered in the past couple weeks. If there's anything in the comments, anybody watching, anything that you guys want to hear me talk about, go ahead and drop it right now, or else I might call it. We might have a nice quick little episode today. Anybody, Bueller, no? Alrighty, folks, I'm gonna go ahead and call it at that. That was a quick one, but I pretty much fired through everything. That was an effective episode of the MMA Monday, number 23 in the books. UFC 283, Jamahal Hill, Merab, Piotr Jan. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share my content. If you guys know any other UFC fans, MMA fans that watch YouTube stuff, send them my content. Also, if you guys have not signed up for the Patreon, or you guys know people that have not signed up for the Patreon, send them a link to the Patreon. Get them signed up. Let's make everybody some money. Everybody can win here. It's a war against Vegas. We're gonna beat the books. So sign up. Let's make some money. Let's do this. Until next time, I will catch you guys later.